Om Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Charnuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. So in the Bhagavad Gita, we are on the 10th chapter. And I've said this so many times, but little context is always good. The big picture of the Bhagavad Gita, one way of looking at it is to divide the 18 chapters into 3 groups of 6 chapters each. Madhusudana Saraswati, for example, does it in his masterly commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, the Gudhartha Deepika, the lamp illumining the hidden intent. There he says the Gita, 18 chapters, you can divide it into 3 groups of 6 chapters each, corresponding to the great non-dual saying, teaching, tathā, you are that. So the first 6 chapters correspond to tvām, you. So they are about self-knowledge. Who am I? That's the question there. The next 6 chapters, 7 to 12, are about that, God. The power behind this universe. Religions consider it, theistic religions talk about an ultimate power which creates this universe, the creator God of religions and so on. So God, chapters 7 to 12, God. And then chapters 13 to 18, the identity, you are that. The true nature of the mystery of God explained and are shown what that is, and that is your own nature. Again, of course, from an entirely Advaitic perspective, non-dual perspective. And it's really painting with broad strokes, because there's so much covered in each of these groups of 3, but still there's a lot of truth to it, because if you need more chairs, there's 1 or 2 in the front also, in case you need more chairs. Because there's a lot of truth to it, because in these chapters, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you find a lot of discussion of bhakti, of devotion. God is very present in these chapters, and devotional practices, and the love of God, that is discussed in detail in these chapters. So it is true, that is sort of these 6 chapters are weighted towards God, heavily weighted towards God. Okay. Now, in the 10th chapter, what Krishna does is that he gives Arjuna a new way of looking at God, a deeper understanding of God. So what's this deeper understanding of God? One understanding of God is, suppose I worship Shiva, for example. So for me, Shiva is God. Who is God? Shiva. What about others? No, they are not God. They can be lower deities. In Hinduism, what they do is they don't say that they are false. They'll say they are lower deities. So for me, God is Shiva. Or suppose I worship the Divine Mother. For me, God is the Divine Mother. And that also very specifically as Kali or Durga or whatever. Or it could be one of the avatars. I worship Krishna or Rama or Ramakrishna or Jesus as God. They are Son of God, incarnation of God. For me, that is God. Nothing else. So there are many devotees, Vaishnavas, very intent devotees of Krishna. For them, Krishnastu Bhagavān Swayam. Krishna is God. What about the rest? In Hinduism, outside Hinduism, in other religions, no, that's not God. So real God is Krishna. So this is one way of looking at it. That's a preliminary approach. A deeper approach, which is there in Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta also does that, is that all of these concepts in which God is understood and worshipped in different traditions, different religions, they're all true. How can they all be true? Krishna is a male form and he is quite blue and he plays the flute. How can that be the golden-hued Durga with 10 arms, clearly a female form, has 10 arms here, there are 2 arms here, and so on and so forth. So the idea is, God is existence, consciousness, bliss with the power of Maya, essentially without form, but with endless auspicious attributes, and can take any of one of the many forms. God can, that same God who is all-powerful, sarvashaktiman, all-knowing, sarvagya, all present everywhere, sarvavyapi. How is he present here? A formless God, you can't see. So invisibly present everywhere. But it can also take the form of Krishna, can also take the form of Rama or Ramakrishna, or the same God who is worshipped in a particular way by the Shaktas, the worshippers of Shakti, Divine Mother. Same God who is worshipped as Shiva. So if I have that concept of God, and then when I worship Shiva, I will know that you who worship Durga or Kali or the Christian God or the Islamic God, they are not wrong, they are not lower. They are the same God. I am worshipping that God as Shiva, you are worshipping that God as Allah or as Vishnu or Narayana, in whichever form. So you can see it's a broader, more inclusive, a deeper understanding of God. First idea of God, this is the form, this is the name, this is the conception, this is the scripture, that's it, and everything else is either not true, false, or lower. That is one preliminary idea. A deeper idea is, no, they are all correct. Because Saguna Brahman, the ultimate God with attributes, can be worshipped in multiple forms, in multiple ideas, and they are all true. Not that one is wrong. And one might say there, an objection could be, possible objection could be, if I love my Krishna, and I consider Krishna to be God, and Krishna alone to be God, I have a very clear idea of the form of God, of the name of God, of the divine play, the Leela of God. The moment you make God an abstract, formless, being, consciousness, bliss with the power of Maya, it sounds philosophical, but it's not something you can relate to. So haven't you lost the personal touch which was there when you had a very focused... So what Hinduism does, this is a peculiar genius of Hinduism. You can retain your Krishna, you can retain your Shiva, you can retain your Durga or Kali, and have this higher or better idea of God also. How? This is the mechanism called Ishta Devata, the chosen ideal. This is pervasive throughout Hinduism. So your Ishta Devata is Krishna. Mirabai's Ishta Devata was Krishna. Sri Ramakrishna's Ishta Devata was Kali. But both Meera and Sri Ramakrishna knew that they were worshipping the same reality. But I still retain the love that I have for my Ishta Devata, chosen ideal. So Hanuman puts it best. He says that Shrinathe Janakinathe Abheda Paramatmani Tathapi Mama Sarvasva Shri Rama Kamalalochana. Shrinatha. Shri is Lakshmi. Shrinatha is Vishnu. So God in the form of Vishnu, who is the ruler of this entire universe, in his divine abode in Vaikuntha, in heaven, reclining on the cosmic serpent Adishesha. So that's Srinatha. And Janakinatha, the husband of Sita, that is Rama. I know they are one and the same. Hanuman says, I know they are one and the same. Abheda Paramatmani. How are they one and the same? They are the same Paramatma, the Supreme Self, is the same existence, consciousness, place. Then, next, Hanuman says, Tathapi, even then, I have something to say. Mama Sarvasva, for me, everything is the lotus-eyed Rama. So he knows. If you worship Krishna, fine. If you worship Narayana, Devi, fine. And I know it's exactly the same divinity I am worshipping. But for me, my loyalty, my love, my focus is my Ishta Devata. So you retain both. You have the philosophical breadth and the devotional intensity also. Next, Krishna goes forward, further in this 10th chapter. And he introduces a new, even wider, even more profound and more real concept of God. What do you mean real? See, whether it's Krishna or Narayana or Vishnu or Rama, whatever it is, it's a matter of, you don't see it right now. And even if you do, keep it private. Otherwise they're going to call 911, There's a saying that it's fine as long as you're talking to God. But if God starts talking back to you, then you have to go to the psychiatrist. And Sri Ramakrishna is to talk to God all the time. And even deeper, can we make it real? What is real to us? God is a matter of faith. A matter of faith. We believe in it. Because it's optional. You may not believe in it. Can we make it a little more real? Well, what's real is this world. For us, choicelessly, this world seems pretty real. Now what Krishna does is he brings the question of the world into the question of God. And the reality of the world, he connects it to the reality of God in the 10th chapter. What is the world and what is God and what is the relationship? Everybody will say, oh, God created the world. But let's take it a little further. That if God created the world, with what material? Using what tools? And the idea in Vedanta is something called parināmavāda, that idea of transformation. As the seed is transformed into the tree. Cause into effect. God is the first cause and the universe is the effect. God is the creator of the universe. But the cause continues in the effect. What do I mean by that? It's a simple idea. This is an idea of a material cause. The thing out of which something is made. So if you make a table out of wood, wood is the material cause and the table is the effect. You make waves out of water. So waves are the effect and water is the material cause. Now notice something. If I say water is the material cause and the waves are the effect, what will you find in the waves? You'll find water. In fact, it's nothing but water. It's a new name you have given, a new form you have given, a new activity which has been given. Table, here. And that's why when we touch the table, we say touch wood. We don't say touch table. Touch wood. This table, this altar, they're made of wood. Wood is the cause and the altar and the table are the effect. But you will find the wood in the altar, in the table. Even saying in is a figure of speech. Because it's all wood here. What you're touching is the wood. So, God continues in the universe. This is those who are philosophically trained, you'll say, yes, only on this particular idea of causation. There are different theories of causality. So one idea of causality is what is called parināmavāda, the transformation theory. The material cause continues in the effect. In that case, the stunning conclusion will be, God is right here. If this universe, if you are a devotee, if you believe that God created the universe, in that case, where is God? Here. The creation is not different from the creator. Mundakopanishad, it says, Yathornanabhi srijate grinnate cha. As the spider spins a web and withdraws it into its own body. Where did the web come from? What is the material is the web made of? From the same material as the body of the spider. Similarly, from that imperishable reality, this entire perishable world emerges. Tathā aksharat sambhavati iha vishvam. Upanishad says, from the akshara, from the imperishable reality, from God, let's say God. And from that comes this universe. In that case, whatever we encounter in the universe, people, animals, plants, down to the most humble particle of dust is God. God is present there. It's made of God stuff. Vivekananda used to say, never approach anything except as God. And he meant it. It was not being rhetorical. It's literally true. And even if we can't see it as being true in our unregenerate state, then we can at least believe it. Because we are right now in the chapters which are discussing faith, based on belief, faith. So Krishna is saying this. In that case, what is this world? These are all, Krishna calls them vibhuti, divine glories, the glories of God. And I am God. Krishna says, these are my glories. So, everything in this material universe becomes a manifestation of God, becomes a manifestation of divinity. So, the material universe is the glory of God, vibhuti, or the glory of God. That's why this chapter is called Vibhuti Yoga. All that has been already explained to Arjuna, and Arjuna loves this idea. How does this make God more real to us? If we accept this move, in that case, God is visibly present to us. Whatever you're seeing is God, just you don't know it. Whatever you hear is God, whatever you taste is God. All the food that we eat, whatever we touch, whatever we encounter, no matter how good or how nasty, how pleasant or unpleasant, is God, if on this view. And Krishna will give you a list of these glories, but basically it means everything here is God. God has transformed himself, herself, itself into this universe. This is not the end of the story. There is one step further in Advaita Vedanta. God has not transformed himself, itself into the universe. God alone exists. There's no, the universe does not have a separate existence. But anyway, that's later. Right now is the universe is the glory of God. That's why Swami Ashokananda ji I loved it. When somebody asked him, where shall I see God? And his answer was, foolish question. Where shall you not see God? Where can you not see God? Now, Arjuna is sold on this proposal and on this idea. Now he's going to ask a question. He will say, he is overcome with emotion. He finds himself surrounded by God. God is real for him. He's overcome with emotion, he's inspired, uplifted. So he is going to pray to Krishna. And he says, this vibhuti, the universe is the glory, is your glory, the glory of God. Can you explain how I can use these for my meditation, for my spiritual practice? Point it out to me. Where am I to think of God? And Krishna will do that. We'll give him a list. The basic idea has been taught now. Now we are going to get into a list of, or a series of descriptions of how to meditate on God using the universe. But first, Arjuna's prayer. In 7 verses, in 10th chapter, starting from the 12th verse onwards, in 7 verses, Arjuna, overcome with emotion, inspired, he prays to Krishna. And he says, you have told me this. I believe you. I believe you. Teach me how I am to see you in these glories and how I am to meditate upon you, in the sun and the moon and the Ganges and so on and so forth. What will happen after this? See, there is a sure end to this, inevitably. God as a matter of faith. All right. But God as seen in the glories of this universe. More real. But still, you may tell me, meditate on the sun as God. Meditate on the Ganges as God. Good. But it's still the sun. It's still a body of water, It's still a table, a chair. It's maybe God, I'm sure, from your perspective. And I can believe it, I can meditate, I can feel great that God is everywhere, but I still see chairs and tables and people. So inevitably the next question will be, not just meditate, not just believe. Can I actually see God? And that will be the 11th chapter. That's one thing you should never ask for. Arjuna asks straight away, why should you not? I want to see it. I want to actually experience it just as I'm experiencing the universe, and now you're telling me, giving me some fancy philosophy and telling me this is actually God. Okay, I don't mind that. It's a nice idea. But little more, can I directly see God everywhere or directly experience God, not tables as God and chairs as God? And Krishna agrees. He said, all right. And he gives him the whole of the 11th chapter is what happens when Arjuna asks for that vision. Extraordinary. We'll come there. Extraordinary poetry. Not much philosophy is there. Just extraordinary poetry. Very uplifting, thrilling, and scary. The result was Arjuna was terrified, out of his wits. And this happens. Vivekananda goes around asking, have you seen God, sir? He asked all the great teachers in Calcutta in the late 19th century. Comes to Sri Ramakrishna. And this simple, unlettered man whom the people said he had seen God. So Vivekananda, Narendranath Datta goes and asks him, have you seen God? He says, yes, I have. And so can you. And in fact, next thing he did was, wait, I'll show him to you. He took Narendranath aside and touched him. And the result was Narendranath, who had been this heroic young man in search for God. I want to see God, not just believe in God. He doesn't ask, does God exist? Do you think God exists? No. Have you seen God? Actually, a very empirical question. And Sri Ramakrishna is the first one who said straight away, I have. And you can. Wait, I'll show him to you, wait. And he had a mystical experience of the entire universe disappearing. And the result was the same. What happened to Arjuna thousands of years ago happened to Narendranath. He was terrified. He shouted, what are you doing? I have parents at home. And Sri Ramakrishna chuckled and he said, oh well, let it be. It will happen in its own time. And there are a number of other instances where people prayed to Sri Ramakrishna. You have all these ecstasies and visions. Can I have at least once, can I see it? You are seeing it. And I believe you. You are seeing it. But I want to see it too. Swami Brahmananda, whom Sri Ramakrishna considered his spiritual son, Rakhal, said, could you give me that God experience, samadhi, actual experience of God? See, Vedanta, when you hear Advaita Vedanta, which is something different from this, it sounds very intellectual, but no, a mystical experience, a vivid experience of God. And Sri Ramakrishna said, it is the mother's will. When the mother wants, it will happen. And Rakhal won't let go. He said, you tell the mother. So the next day when Rakhal, Brahmananda, he was a young man at that time, he went to the Kali temple, sat for meditating. Suddenly a blaze of light, literally like light. He was seeing it. Not the light metaphor in Advaita Vedanta, pure consciousness as light, which the way I speak. Not in that way. Actually, experiencing a blaze of light coming out from the sanctorum of the Kali temple and rushing towards him. A mystical experience. Many mystics have reported this. But Rakhal's reaction was exactly the same as Narendranath and Arjuna thousands of years before. He ran for his life. He got up from his meditation and ran. And a little later when he went to Sri Ramakrishna, before he could say anything, Sri Ramakrishna says, well, what is this? You pester me for it and when you get it, you run away. I remember a funny story. Swami Bhuteshanandaji, who was the president of our order, extraordinary monk, very learned, very loving. I've seen men, women calling this 97, 98-year-old man mother. So loving he was. So, one day we monks, we used to go and ask questions. Not me, I was a novice, just a newcomer. I could just barely see him. I was being junior in the pecking order. I was at the back of the crowd, and when the crowd of monks was too much, I was outside the room. So I would just peek in through the window. But I could hear what was going on. So that day the question was, why were they scared? Vivekananda and Arjuna and Rakhal and almost anybody who actually got that vision directly, why were they terrified? So his answer was, he said, he would speak in a slow drawl, he said, oh well, when your individuality, your personality is disappearing into a great void. That's what Vivekananda experienced actually. That can be terrifying. Because you're not enlightened. You don't know that you're not the body-mind. You have read about it. And then this little body-mind individuality is disappearing. What does the mind feel like? The mind will feel like I'm being annihilated. You are not the mind. And the mind is being annihilated, but you are not being annihilated with the mind. But since you are identified with the mind, that clarity is not there, you will feel you are annihilated. Anyway, so he said, so you feel scared and so on. He was telling this. And then he always had this little quip. He said, but you lot need not be afraid. The monks gathered there. At first we didn't get what he was saying. Then we rose in a howl of protest. What he meant was, we are not going to get those experiences. You lot need not be afraid. I generally do not speak about these mystical experiences because it becomes a habit of people then will keep on saying, I had this experience, that experience, my experience is more than yours or better than yours. And so, no use. Yeah. But these are true. These are the most powerful experiences human beings can have in their life. Even if you get such an experience in a dream, one mark is you'll never forget it. Second, it's always uplifting, even if you remember it years later. It's almost always central. These often mark a turning point in life. And these are real. These are not ideas. There was one, I think he was American or British, a white person. He became Yogi Krishna Prem in India. So he was a devotee of Krishna. And he writes, he got a vision. I remember this professor, he was telling us about this vision. And then he scolded us. I was there and a group of other professors and monks. And we were discussing at a very philosophical level. And he says, I'm reading out the mystical experiences of Yogi Krishna Prem. And he says, there he was, that blue-hued, beautiful child with the peacock feather and the flute. Not an idea, not your philosophical abstraction. I beheld him. So this is a mystical experience. So that is going to happen in the 11th chapter. Why is it so scary, or why doesn't it work? Because without preparation, see, Sri Ramakrishna has those experiences every day. It's fine with him. Narendranath, he tries to give him one taste of it and he's terrified. Because of lack of preparation. That's all. Over time, as we cultivate it, we advance, the mind is purified, focused, we're able to hold on to those experiences more and more, and then it's all right. But initially it can be mind-blowing. Now let us go into the prayer of Arjuna. 12th verse. The 12th verse is very sublime. Arjuna uvāca. If you like, you can repeat after me. Paraṃ brahma paraṃ dhāma. Paraṃ brahma paraṃ dhāma. Pavitraṃ paramam bhavān. Pavitraṃ paramam bhavān. puruṣaṃ śāśvataṃ divyam. puruṣaṃ śāśvataṃ divyam. ādidevam ajaṃ vibhum. ādidevam ajaṃ vibhum. So he says, O Lord, you are the Supreme Brahman, paraṃ Brahma, the supreme abode, paraṃ dhāma, and supremely holy, paramaṃ pavitraṃ. And then he says that you are the eternal being, resplendent being, the primeval deity, birthless and omnipresent. So, puruṣaṃ, śāśvataṃ, divyam, ādidevam, ajaṃ, vibhum. So each of these adjectives, there's a lot of philosophy in it. This is the 12th verse. Have you got it? Chapter 10, 12th verse. Each of these terms has profound philosophy behind. The first term itself, paraṃ Brahma, the transcendental Brahman. So paraṃ Brahma means existence, consciousness, bliss. Satchidananda. Or as it has been defined in the Taittiriya Upanishad, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Brahman is limitless or infinite existence, consciousness. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Or Satchidananda, limitless being, limitless consciousness, limitless bliss. Or as Vivekananda put it, existence itself, knowledge itself, bliss itself, Satchidananda. This is Paraṃ Brahma, the absolute reality. And that also, some would say that is actually meant to be a negative definition. Existence itself means that it's not that it does not exist. Consciousness itself means that it's not that it is an inert, non-conscious, insentient being. Ananda means not that it is bereft of bliss, instead of making a positive statement. Anyhow, that is paraṃ Brahma. The word Brahma, etymologically, grammatically, it just means the vast, that which is without any limit. Brahma, Vajaspati Mishra defines it. Brinhanatvad, brihatvad, atma, brahma iti giyate. The self, Brahman, is that which expands without limit, or that's basically without limitation, infinite. So he says, paraṃ Brahma, Arjuna says, paraṃ Brahma, paraṃ dhāma, the ultimate abode. Abode is where someone stays. So in Hinduism, God has an abode. Basically in all theistic religions. So God is in heaven. God's in heaven and all's right with the world. I think Robert Browning. So God is in heaven. Heaven is dhāma, the holy abode of God. But here in a philosophical sense, the entire universe, where does it stay? God stays in heaven. But God is appearing as this universe. Where does it stay? Where does this universe stay? What is the abode? God is the abode. In what sense? In the sense that wood is the abode of this table and the altar. In the sense that water is the abode of the waves, of all the waves in the ocean. Where is the wave? You can say it's in the ocean. Where is the ocean? It's in water. It's in water is another way of saying, more clearly if you say it, it is water. So when you say divinity is the very substance of this universe, that's a poetic way of saying it would be paraṃ dhāma. The abode, the ultimate abode of all beings and everything is this divinity. And Vedanta has the radical statement of, it's not somewhere there, some other abode where you have to go to. You are in that ultimate abode right now, but you don't see it as that. And you say, what, Manhattan? Manhattan is not bad, but is it the ultimate abode? Yes, it is. And exactly so is every other place, time in this universe. But you have to see it as God in that case. Paraṃ dhāma, pavitraṃ paramam, the holiest of all. It's just the contact, even the thought. In Bhishma, he praises Narayana, Vishnu. Yasya smarana matrena mutyate jantu janma samsara bandhanat. Just by remembering Vishnu, just by remembering the Lord, the sentient being who's caught, a jiva who's caught in samsara, is liberated from the cycle of birth and death. So, all right, I'm remembering God now, but why am I not liberated? Remembering God means you're just remembering a concept or something that you have heard or believed or something. Remembering it means, suppose you know someone very well and you try to remember now, so you have a very vivid memory of that person. Can you do that with God? If you did that, you are liberated. So, pavitraṃ paramam, the holiest of all, the most purifying of all. Puruṣaṃ, puruṣayanāt iti puruṣa. So this is a very ancient word, purusha. In Indian languages it means man or male, and prakriti means female, or purusha and shakti, male and female. But if you go back to the philosophical roots, and the roots back in the Vedas is a purusha suktam, it means the ultimate reality. Another meaning of that purusha is, so for example, one of the Vedic hymns which Swami Vivekananda loved very much, Vedāham puruṣaṃ mahāntam, I have realized that limitless purusha. What's it like? Ādidevam, blazing forth like the sun. Tamasah parastat, forever beyond darkness, beyond the darkness of ignorance and misery and limitation and evil, resplendent like the sun. Tameva vidittvāti mrityumeti, knowing that if you realize that purusha, one goes beyond death. One goes beyond limitation, sorrow. Any other way? Nānyah pantha vidyate ayanaya. There is no other path. You have to realize God. God realization, self-realization, whatever you call it. That is the path, that is the goal. Puruṣaṃ. Another meaning of Purusha is puruṣayanāt, the one who dwells in this body. This body is called the city with 9 gates, the 9 organs or orifices of the body. in that dwells. Who dwells there? Consciousness dwells there. That ultimate reality dwells as awareness, consciousness right here. That's called puruṣaṃ. śāśvataṃ, eternal, ever, the most ancient one, śāśvataṃ. Divyam. Divyam literally means divine. More specifically, it means bright, shining. Means, the Sanskrit root means to shine. And the philosophical meaning, here the commentator, I'm quoting from Sridhar Swami, divyam dyotanatmakam swaprakāṣaṃ ca. Shining. What do you mean shining? Is it radioactive or what? Why is he shining? Shining means self-luminous. That still doesn't make things clear. Consciousness is self-luminous. What do you mean self-luminous? See, it's like example would be this light. So there are lots of, we are all here, chairs and tables and the altar, everything is here. But until the light is switched on, it's all in darkness. When the light is switched on, what does it do? It reveals everything and everybody in this room. And not only that, interesting, it reveals itself. But the things in this room, the chairs and tables and the people, they neither reveal themselves nor do they reveal anything else. But the light is something unique which reveals everything else wherever it falls on, and it reveals. You don't need to switch on another light to see this light. So this is called swaprakāṣa, self-luminous, which illumines the other and itself also. It reveals itself and illumines the other. You won't imagine. You can't imagine the amount of philosophical heavy lifting that has to be done for this one little term, swaprakāṣa. Why? What would be the immediate objection? A thing cannot act on itself. This is basic philosophy, logic. A knife cannot cut itself. Wood can't burn itself. Food can't feed itself. And so on. So a thing cannot act on itself. So how can light illumine itself? You might think, what a stupid quote. Is this what philosophers do? Well, very, very interesting. So you can't say the light illumines itself. And there is a work around that. We don't say the light illumines itself. And any philosopher can tell you that. What is illumination? Something was in darkness and it is revealed by light. So the room was in darkness, the light is switched on, the light reveals the room which was existing but in darkness. So it removes darkness. So it illumines the room. But itself, was the light ever in darkness? So if you define illumination as removal of darkness, in that case the light is not illumining itself. Do you see the move? You will not allow a thing to act on itself. The light can act on all other things and illumine them. But it cannot illumine itself because that would be acting on itself. Then the answer for that would be, don't get upset. I can put it in another way. The light is not illumining itself. Because illumination, how do you define illumination? Illumination is removal of darkness. The light was never in darkness. It was switched on. The moment it's switched on, the moment it's there, it's not in darkness at all. So, when the light is self-revealing, self-luminous, it's not illumining itself. You might think that, what quibbles? Unnecessary quibbles. But no. It's not, just light shining upon things in darkness is just the beginning. So is the light self-luminous? Then light will be God, Brahman, this light? No. Because this light depends upon your having eyes. The light cannot illumine anything, nor itself, unless you have eyes. If you have eyes to see, then you can see what is being illumined by the light. And you can see the light itself. So the eyes illumine the light. But then eyes themselves are illumined by mind, unless you are paying attention. You can't see. Light may be on, everything is there, eyes are open, but you are not seeing because your mind is elsewhere. It can happen, distracted. It often happens in Vedanta class. So eyes are open, but you're not seeing. So mind illumines the eyes. The light illumines the dark room and then makes it everything visible. The light itself is illumined by the eyes. And the eyes are illumined by the mind. Now illumination is not in the sense of light. It's in the sense of knowing. And mind itself is illumined by consciousness. And consciousness is illumined by? Not itself. You can't say itself because thing cannot act on itself. It is self-luminous. Swaprakasha. All of that has been packed into this one word. Swaprakasha, self-luminous. There was a great master, Chitsukhacharya, who lived about 700, 800 years ago. He wrote a book called Tattva Pradipika, the lamp illumining reality. And it's on Advaita Vedanta. It's a very difficult book. I've studied just one page of it. And that page is the definition. He has a definition of swaprakasha, self-luminosity. That's the topic, self-luminosity. You wouldn't believe it. He gives 11 definitions. He takes up 10 definitions, rejects each one, then comes to the 11th definition, and which he accepts. What is self-luminosity? Please define. The opponent asks, and then one by one they're taken up. This is called Chitsukhi. His name of the book is Tattva Pradipika, but because the master's name was Chitsukhacharya, so the book is also called Chitsukhi, the book written by Chitsukhacharya. I had a teacher who used to study this book. He used to go to a Pandit in Calcutta. From our monastery, he would travel to the Institute of Culture, where the Pandit would come and teach this book, Chitsukhi. And my teacher, for the time I knew him from about nearly, how long? Nearly 30 years, until the Pandit died. They were studying that text. They didn't complete it once. All right, one more funny story, I'll go ahead. I'll come to you, yes. The funny story I can't resist, but it's incomprehensible to non-Bengalis. So it's a play on the word Chitsukhi. This monk came to when we were novices being trained in the main monastery. A visiting monk asked, "So what are you studying?" And we said, "These are the books we are studying." And he said, "Oh, that's nothing. We all studied Chitsukhi," and we were impressed. That's the book you would name drop in non-dualistic circles to impress others. We were like, "Oh, you actually studied Chitsukhi?" I said, "Yes." And then the next part of it is a play on words in Bengali. "Oh, your chit hoye shue thakar je shuk, seta Chitsukhi." Now, in Bengali, chit actually means consciousness. But in Bengali, chit means flat. If you lie on your back, you're chit. And sukha means bliss. So the bliss of lying flat on your back, that is Chitsukhi. That's the Bengali derivation of Chitsukhi. Yeah. All of that goes into this one word, swaprakasha. Then he says, ādidevam, the first among the gods. We are studying Mundaka Upanishad. How does that Upanishad begin? Brahma devanam prathamasam babhuva vishwasya karta bhuvanasya gopta. Of all the gods, the first to be manifested was Brahma, who created this universe and who protects this universe. But manifested from where? From Vishnu. We all know the iconography. We have seen it in little comic books in India. Vishnu lying on the cosmic serpent, which is floating in the eternal seas, the Kshira Sagar, the luminous seas. And from Vishnu's navel comes a lotus. And on the lotus opens and Brahma is sitting there. So of all the gods, the first to appear was Brahma. But before the gods appeared, who was there? Who was before everything? Vishnu. There was no. That's why Vishnu is God. Brahma is the first created, the first born. But Vishnu is God who is before all the gods. There is a very profound hymn, Nasadya Suktam, in the Vedas, in the Rig Veda, it's there. Before the creation of the universe, what was there? Kimasit gahanam gabhiram. Even the words are stirring. In that absolute deep, what moved? What vibrated without movement? And it goes on to say that Who knows? Nobody knows, because all this was what we are speaking of was before the universe, before the creation of the gods. And that ancient one, birthless one, perhaps he knows, perhaps even he does not know. And it ends there, the hymn ends there. Kim asit gahanam gabhiram. In the beginning of the universe, before anything was created, in the deep darkness, he uses the waters, the deep darkness of the waters, what moved? What vibrated without motion? Where darkness was enveloped in darkness. Look at the poetry of it, darkness enveloped in darkness. By the way, anybody who's read the Old Testament, Genesis, this is the first line of the Genesis also. Before the creation of, literally, creation of the universe, in the dark waters, what moved? How? Where? The Middle East, Old Testament. The Rig Veda, thousands of years before. Exact same line. It starts with that. So, ādidevam, the first of the gods. Ajaṃ. So, how was God created? Unborn. You cannot ask that question, how was this God created? Ajaṃ means birthless. That means God has no cause. Yeah. Cause leads to effect. So what became God? What produced God? No answer. And then vibhum. What is his connection to this universe? All pervasive. That God, that eternal God before the universe is right here, right now, pervading this entire universe. As all this, as all the glories which we are going to speak about. And then Arjuna says, I don't know this. He's very honest. I've just heard it. I've read about it, and you're telling me about it right now. So the 13th verse, we'll read that, and you had a question. Anybody else has a question, we'll come to that. 13th verse, let's read that. āhus tvām ṛṣayaḥ sarve, āhus tvām ṛṣayaḥ sarve, devarṣir nāradas tathā, devarṣir nāradas tathā, asito devalo vyāsa, asito devalo vyāsa, swayam chaiva bravishi me, swayam chaiva bravishi me. So I have heard that all sages, the divine sage Narada, Asita, Devala, Vyasa, and they have all said this, and you too are telling me this too. You are telling me this. I'm hearing from you. And this is so evocative. When we talk about Sri Ramakrishna as an avatar, how do we know? Because Vivekananda called him an avatar, and Brahmananda, and all the sages, the direct disciples. But Sri Ramakrishna himself said many times, you too have told us. And now somebody whom you would trust immensely, you know this person cannot lie. And you know this person is not crazy, he's competent. It's extraordinary, probably superior to all of us. This is extraordinary competence and power and absolute honesty. This person says, God exists. God can be seen. The goal of life is God realization. If he says, I am the incarnation of God. So Sri Ramakrishna, when he says that he who was Rama, he who was Krishna is in this body, Ramakrishna. And there's a recording of Swami Abhedananda who was here. It's available on YouTube. The speech he gave in 1936 on the birth centenary of Sri Ramakrishna. He says, how many times, I'm imitating him. He's saying it in Bengali, but it's very resounding. I guess people in those days spoke like that. How many times we have heard it from his own lips. He who was Rama, he who was Krishna is in this body, Ramakrishna. He didn't say it just once. He said it many times. Like that, Arjuna is saying to Krishna, you too, I've read all this, I've heard all this, but you are telling me, you too, my Lord, are telling me this, that all of this universe is the glories of God. You are the avatar of God, and all of this. I believe you. You had a question before we go on. You need the microphone? Yes. So we have a new system.
No, you were talking about...
Is it on? Is it, just check. No, it's on. It's on. You don't.
Hello?
Just say, yes.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Can everybody hear you? Yes. Yeah.
No, so you were talking about Satprakasha. Right?
Swaprakasha.
Swaprakasha, which
self-luminous.
is self-revealing.
Self-luminous. Self-revealing also.
So when you remember in the past you talked about reflected consciousness and how you turn in, and that then you experience real, true consciousness. Is that a process of consciousness self-revealing to the person who is...
Yes, but what you're asking is, in the Drigdrishya Viveka, it's what is called a prakriya, a methodology in Advaita Vedanta. That is a method for removing ignorance about our real nature. What you will find there is something that you will not get a new experience. You will see it's always been there. That's what enables us to have all these experiences. So that's what you will realize in the Drigdrishya Viveka. It removes ignorance, that procedure. Is ignorance about something that already exists. Whereas here, when we talked, so that's what it is, Swaprakasha. That's different from the mystical experiences which we are talking about, which are extraordinary experiences which we never had earlier, and we are fortunate enough to have it, and then again it goes away also. It leaves a trace behind.
Thank you so much.
Then the prayer continues. Arjuna asks this question. He's building up to a question. 14th verse. Sarvam etadritam manye, sarvam etadritam manye, yanmam vadasi keshava, yanmam vadasi keshava, nahi te bhagavan vyaktim, nahi te bhagavan vyaktim, vidur deva nadanava, vidur deva nadanava. All this and what else you say unto me, O Keshava, I regard as true. O Lord, verily neither the gods nor the demons know your manifestations. Sarvam etad ritam manye, yanmam vadasi Keshava. O my Lord, whatever you are saying to me, I regard as true. Not that I know it, I believe you. This is very important. This is called Shraddha. It's a great power. The problem is, in our modern age, we live in an age of suspicion, not an age of faith. Faith is for dumb people. I'm clever. Such cleverness is the worst kind of stupidity. It deprives us of the greatest prize. So, we live in, thanks to Nietzsche, he talked about the hermeneutics of suspicion. Wherever anything looks good, nice, high, holy, grand, treat it with suspicion. Analyze it, do an sting operation, and expose it, and you will find something rotten underneath. My answer to that is, bravo, well done. What's the point of it? So you have deprived yourself of... there are things which are actually true, holy, grand and great and beautiful. And until we know them, our only access to it is through faith. You must at some point believe somebody, something, somewhere. How poverty-stricken we are if we are eternally suspicious of everything. And thing is, if you were skeptical and suspicious truly in a philosophical sense, that would be great. But that's so hard. That's so hard. What happens to all of these very clever people is, they're suspicious of anything you tell them, and then they end up believing the silliest of things. Let me see. Often people, great intellects, men of the world, very competent, in the world of religion turn out to be babies. Falling for this, sometimes this silliest showmanship, some worst kind of cults, believing anything and everything. Somebody put it very beautifully. He said, there is a disorder called pica, where there's some kind of nutritional imbalance, some kind of what you call iron deficiency and all. So they eat like dust or ice or things like that, which is not nutritional at all. But it struck me that this is exactly what happens to people who are deficient in faith. Then they end up with a kind of religious pica. eating something which is not useful or even often harmful, silly, stupid. All right. So I love this when Arjuna says, I don't know this, I don't get it yet, but I say what you are saying is true. I believe it. Sadam manye, I believe it. And he's very honest. It's a belief, but I do believe it because you are saying it. One of the great Swamis of our order long before my time, Swami Sarvapriyananda, who was a great teacher of Advaita, of Vedanta, great teacher of our Ramakrishna Vivekananda tradition, enlightened person. He established our ashram in Nagpur. So I met Swamis who were his students. How he would begin a class on the Gita. When he starts first class on the Gita, that we're going to study the Bhagavad Gita. So I had those notes only unfortunately of the first class. How he begins. He says, keep this in mind when you study the Gita. Who is speaking? It is Krishna who is speaking. God, an incarnation of God who is speaking. Not your professor. Not your the Sunday column writer in the newspaper. Not your know-it-all neighbor. No, it's God who's speaking. Keep this in mind. So your whole attitude to these words changes. Another thing I remember from those notes, when you study text like this, he uses the word prayojanam. In Vedanta, there's a term called prayojanam. Prayojanam means, what do I get out of it? He says, keep this prayojanam vibrating within you. That means alive within your mind when you approach these texts. Why am I here? Because here I am sure lies the solution to all the quest of my life. I am seeking fulfillment. I am seeking security in this world of insecurity. I am seeking safety. I am seeking fulfillment, joy, bliss. I am seeking for strength to face the ups and downs of life. All of this I will get here. This is the need. This is why I am here. So he says, how beautiful. He says, keep this vibrating. How receptive we will be when we keep these things in our mind. And these are just 2 sentences from his notes. Yeah. I have never attended those classes. I think it was Swami Shankarananda who said, I remember I heard this a long time ago. This was when Swami Bhaskar was teaching in Nagpur and in our main monastery in Belur. Sometimes when some conversations when the Swamis were complaining, well, at the time of the direct disciples, the founders, Vivekananda and others, what vibrating spirituality we had, but that's sort of gone down so much now. And then the president of the order, Shankarananda, I think he said, why do you say so? Go to Nagpur, there he gives 2 classes a day and the whole ashram vibrates with the divine presence all day long. So it's literally transmitting spirituality there. And we get an idea. If this is this is the quality of the classes, Who is the speaker? Why are you here? Keep these vibrating. I do not know it. Even the gods don't know it. Even the demons don't know it. What to speak of human beings? Then, 15th. We'll do that and stop. And if there's any question or reaction. Swayamevatmanatmanam Swayamevatmanatmanam Vettatvam puruṣottama Vettatvam puruṣottama Bhutabhavana bhutesha Bhutabhavana bhutesha Devadeva jagatpate Devadeva jagatpate. You alone know yourself by yourself. What a beautiful... You alone know yourself by yourself. O best of all beings, O creator of beings, O Lord of beings, O Lord, O God of the gods, O Lord of the universe. He is overwhelmed with emotion and devotion. Anybody has a question? All right, one question we'll take today because we are out of time.
Yes. Swami. So the table is wood.
Yeah.
I understand. What if the wood is rotting with cruelty, with abuse, with deep disturbances.
Yes.
Yes? So is the deep disturbances, the rotting, also the wood? And how can I see this more clearly?
Right. So the straight answer to it is, evil in the world, is it there or not? Yes. Is there good? Yes. Is there evil? Yes. Are there awful things in this world? Yes. Disturbing, painful things? Yes. Is all of it God stuff, made of God? Yes. The evil is not less God than the good. However, there's something to be understood here. You don't end up, I learned that God is present in everybody, so the crook and the embezzler, now let me do a little worship to him and bow down to the person here. Sri Ramakrishna was very clear here. He said, all are Narayana. Narayana is God. All are Narayana. But one does not embrace the tiger Narayana. If you embrace the tiger Narayana, that's the way in which God is manifesting himself, that tiger is going to embrace you. Now, if you are an enlightened being, you are free of samsara, what will happen is the tiger will embrace you, and then that will be the end of that particular body you're manifesting. He'll eat you up. But if you are so advanced that you see it's nothing to you, you are not even that body. Let the body feed the tiger. Yeah. Then there's some sense, because at no point one should leave common sense behind. Otherwise, for the rest of us, I am a spiritual seeker. I need this body. I must protect, I must feed this body, clothe this body, take medicines when it's sick, protect it from the tiger god, in order to attain God.
Yes.
So common sense, never leave it behind, especially when it comes to stuff like religion, spirituality. You leave common sense behind, you are in the realm of nonsense. And it's dangerous nonsense sometimes. So definitely use common sense. But inside that the same divinity, it has to be. This entire universe, it has to be. Evil is not fundamental. It is on the surface of things. And you have to deal with it when you're in face to face with it. And be careful. Deal with it with all care and with strength. And protect yourself from it. Why protect yourself? So that you may be liberated. Does a time come when you don't have to do that? Yes, a time comes. But then you have to be at that level. Vivekananda would tell the story of a monk in the Himalayas, the forests, where a tiger caught this monk. All his life he had repeated, Soham, I am he, or I am that I am the absolute. The tiger caught him and was dragging him up, true story, dragging him up to the forests to eat him. Until the very end, what people could hear from the distance was Soham, Soham, Soham. Did he die? Did it save him? Did his philosophy and spirituality save him? No. The tiger ate him up. But he is somebody who's fine with it. He sees clearly that I'm not dead with the death of the body. A much simpler example. Once, Swami Atulananda, who was an American, he was Dutch actually, from New York, and he became a monk. He went to India. Swami Turiyananda, great non-dualist Vedantin, they were traveling together in North India in a pilgrimage. And they took refuge at night in a big hut. And there were many other pilgrims, and a hot discussion started on Vedanta. The world is false, Brahman alone is real. And Turiyananji was an uncompromising non-dualist. Then one of the gentlemen sitting there, they were all sitting around a fire. The gentleman said, if the world is false, can you thrust your hand into the fire? And Turiyananji, with all excitement, he got up and he said, yes, of course, and the hand will get burnt. The hand will get burnt, but it is nothing to me because I am Brahman. And he was about to thrust his hand into the fire when the people jumped on him and pulled him back. So that's it. I mean, it's not escapism, it's not fantasy. The world, and at the level of the world, laws of physics will have their, and the laws of nature will all play out. But there is something which these people realize, which for them it makes them safe, or safe not in the physical sense. See, what I'll tell you, I'll end with this. We think if I'm spiritual, if I'm godly, prayerful, God will protect me in all sorts of ways. God does, but not in this way we think. So there's this person who went to the Lama and asked, so if I pray to the Buddha with all my heart, I'll be okay? And he was going to go through a medical procedure. So I'll be okay? I won't die? And I'll be okay? And the Lama said, you'll be okay. So I won't die? The Lama said, even if you die, you'll be okay. That's the point. And one must be completely comfortable with that. Spirituality is that which makes you completely comfortable with that. No problem at all. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.